Okay, I feel like I'm like not close enough. Let me see. Try this here. Let's scoot up a bit. Yeah, that feels a little better. Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
All
I just
right.
felt like my head was very tiny in the screen.
You want me to
I
give
feel
you
like I'm like 2
mine?
inches away from the screen. Like, okay.
You can pull a Debbie. She'll be like, "Hey, you."
This is why I hate doing these things. Why I hate video? This is why.
Oh my, it's all good. All right. Okay. So, hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the weTHRIVE podcast. My name is Casey Clark, and I'm your host, as well as the growth. Yeah, let's start that again. I forgot to mention we can cut out any part of this. So
Awesome.
all right. Oh, let's try that again.
Go for it.
All right. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the weTHRIVE podcast. My name is Casey Clark, and I'm your host, as well as the Chief Growth Officer of C. Clark Consulting. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Miss Deborah Morrone, aka Dr. Deb, and she owns Frederick Chiropractic Wellness Center. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Finally. Glad we finally figured it out.
Yes, indeed. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a chiropractor. I've been practicing here in Frederick for 20 years now. I started out with my practice downtown Frederick for 15 years, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, I moved out here to Buckystown Pike. Over that time, I've evolved through, I use a lot of different techniques, a lot of different types of care, but, I really enjoy focusing on the entire person. People come in with aches and pains, but, understanding how that's affecting them and how it's affecting their life and what their goals are and what they want to do. I really enjoy getting to know my patients so that I can help them do the things that they need to do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love it. So what does the word thriving mean to you? And I've been so eager to ask.
And I was thinking about thriving when I was reading the questions. I was thinking in terms of like a garden. And, life is obviously not always growth and sunshine and roses, and it's not always pretty, but, even, getting through the ups and downs and being resilient and knowing that, even the bad stuff can come to an end. Trying to keep that positive outlook and looking for ways to make things better, I think, is a big part of thriving. Lately it's easy to just get dragged down into the muck and mud and misery that's going on in the world. But it's like, okay, what can I do to make myself better? How can I improve the situation? Even changing your outlook on it can make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. As soon as you said the garden, I imagined like through the bad times, and we're in the winter right now, so it's dark.
Yeah.
So I imagine like a seed beneath the surface.
Yeah, there's a lot going on underneath the bad stuff. Yeah. and eventually it'll be pretty again.
Exactly. And even related to what you do, like that seed is going to take root and spread out. And I can't help but to relate that to the nervous system.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's going to take some work to make it look pretty again. Yeah. You're going to have to get out there and dig in the mud and the dirt. And some people enjoy that. Some people don't. But sometimes you got to get through the dirty work to get to the pretty stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So when making yourself pretty, what obstacles have you had to overcome when you've been trying to thrive?
Just being a solo practitioner, a solo business person, it's a challenge. I'm a hardcore introvert, so it's hard for me to reach out and ask for help sometimes. I tend to internalize a lot of my stress, and that shows up in unpleasant ways sometimes. So those are I would say my 2 biggest challenges is trying to take everything on myself and not delegating or asking for help when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I can relate. It still surprises me that you're an introvert, but I mean, I guess we've known each other for a while.
I like people. Obviously, I like people, but so especially the work I do is very hands-on, and as I said, I kind of get into it with a lot of my patients, and I love doing that. So at 6 o'clock, when it's time to go home, my brain's like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
No more people for the next 12 hours.
Yeah. I
So it's more of a recharging thing, and as opposed to I don't like people thing. I do like people, just in small doses in certain environments.
have to have time to process it all, right?
Exactly.
So what have been some of your biggest resources for helping you, recharge and process everything?
I've worked with a group of chiropractic coaches since the beginning of my career. So they're people that I know and trust. They have different types of practices, and they're all very nerdy like I am. So, when I'm having trouble or I'm getting stuck, or, whether it's, figuring out a patient situation or a business situation or just looking for new ideas, being able to reach out to them and hang out with them a few times a year at workshops and seminars has been helpful. The communities I developed here in Frederick. I started here when I moved here. I knew two people. I knew my cousin and her husband. That was it. So I started networking with various community groups, the JCs first, Rotary Club, Women's Business Network, but my yoga studio, my CrossFit gym, Odin CrossFit. So just finding ways to get out and hang out with people that are mutually beneficial. They help me physically, mentally, and emotionally, and I have also been able to build my business through a lot of those contacts.
Yeah,
So nothing like a good yoga class to reboot my brain, or go lift some heavy stuff and just make it all feel better.
Yes. Very interesting. I'm actually reading Lifting Heavy Things right now.
Oh, good.
Fascinating book. So are there any other resources that come to mind that have helped you on a personal level?
I have some really good friends who are, fortunately, they're also therapists. So
that always helps.
Exactly. But no, just mostly finding those communities that I have common interest with. I love fitness. I love working out in the community. So those community groups, the different, just those interest groups and people I have stuff in common with, especially being an introvert, it's like there's always those places, to reach out and, get that personal contact when I need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you think of the work that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
how do you kind of relate that to legacy? And what does legacy mean to you, and how are you creating it?
Yeah, I saw that question.
Loaded.
I was like, what does that even mean? Legacy, I think, in terms of every now and then I'll hear back from somebody who I haven't seen as a patient in a while, and they'll be like, yeah, but like I've had some troubles, but I remember what you told me all those years ago, and I was able to use that to work through it. So, just learning, giving people ways to better take care of themselves and helping them remember that, a lot of what they can do for themselves.
Yeah.
To make keep themselves healthy and well. So I always love hearing those kind of stories. Somebody will just reach out to me on Facebook and like, yeah, I hurt myself last week, but I did what you told me about to do 5 times, 50 times and 5 years ago. And they're like, oh, and now I feel better. It's like, thanks. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good legacy to leave behind, is just, helping people get healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repercussions to that.
Yeah, there are. It's funny, like, you mentioned that you kind of stick in people's mind, and I forget, I was somewhere yesterday and they were like, turn your body this way, and I was only turning my torso, and I immediately thought of you, because I'm like, okay, clearly my brain is not communicating right now because I can't take simple commands. So I'm like, this woman is like,
I was feeling like crap, and I remembered you told me that. I remember what we talked about last time that set this off, and I was like, oh, the same thing happened, so I didn't freak out about it. It's like, okay, good.
Yeah, you're like always in the back of my mind. It's like, what would Deb do? What would Deb
My brain's
say?
not working. What's going on?
Yeah. So, definitely a good thing, though. So,
good.
Yeah, it's not the nagging voice. It's the, hey, you should consider this.
Yeah. Of course, there's always the, damn it, you were right.
That too. Like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah. I did what you told me not to do, and it happened again. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, the stories that I could go on about. But
Oh, I've got
anyways. So if you could give someone a little nugget of advice that is, let's start with trying to be an entrepreneur. What would you tell them?
Oh gosh. It's the best and worst thing ever. I love working for myself, but there are many days when I wake up and I wish somebody else was making the decisions and paying the bills.
Yeah.
But looking at it, I would not do it any other way. So yeah, it's the best and worst job ever because, I pay the bills, I make the decisions, and sometimes I gotta, wash the floors and clean the toilets too. I mean, you're responsible for everything all the time. But there's a lot of upside and downside to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, can I relate.
Uh-huh.
So when someone is trying to thrive personally, what nugget of advice do you have for them?
Pay attention to what you're absorbing from your environment, who you're hanging out with, what you're putting into your body physically, mentally, emotionally is huge. Yeah, we absorb everything. So it's really easy with social media and all the negativity and craziness that's out there to let it drag you down. So finding, number one, filtering that stuff out or avoiding it as much as possible, but also knowing find a few things that make you feel better when you're feeling icky, whether it's, going for a walk or just throwing, I put on a meditation app for 5 minutes when my brain gets crazy and just calm it down, or just lay down on the floor and do some yoga stretches. Have those few little tricks and tips that make you feel better regardless of where you are or what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I mean, so many people like myself, you get into winter and you're like, oh, I want caffeine because it makes you feel good. And then I'm like, that simple stretch, like if I do a hip stretch or something, that makes me feel 20 times better than caffeine.
I lay down on the floor and I roll around and do some up dog, down dogs, and some, like a 5-minute breathing app exercise. And it's like, oh, oxygen to my brain, and maybe a big old, glass of water works wonders.
Yeah. It's the simple things.
Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome.
It's always the simple things. It doesn't have to be complicated. Literally, I tell people, breathing is one of the best things you can do to relieve stress. And you can do it. I don't care if you're sitting in your car, in line at Target, whatever, just start breathing.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like that awareness that you've created about breathing, and like, when you're like, Casey, breathe. I'm like, oh yeah, I might need to do that.
My brain hurts. Oh, I haven't taken a deep breath in 3 hours. Yeah. Little oxygen and water goes a long way.
Well, I definitely appreciate all your little nuggets that you give.
I'm happy to help.
So is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that kind of popped up that you haven't shared yet?
I think we covered a lot of ground. I don't know. Health, so many people are dealing with so many chronic issues and stresses and traumas and dramas. And really it's important to stick with the basics. Like I said, eat, drink, move, ignore all the crazy stuff out there and surround yourself with good people who are going to, pull you where you need to go.
Yeah.
Even if it's the local bar for a glass of wine, sometimes that works too.
Love it. I love it. Awesome. So if people would like to connect with you or come in and get a consultation so that they can feel better, how can they reach you?
My office is on Buckystown Pike, right by all the massive construction that's going on right outside my window. So we're at the intersection of 85 and 270. You can reach me on Facebook at Frederick Chiropractic Wellness Center. Website is www.frederickchiro.com. You can reach out through those, either messages or emails. I try to keep up with them, and I'm usually pretty good about responding to them. So any questions that you want to ask, feel free.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad I finally figured out how to make it happen.
Me too. And I'd also like to thank our music sponsor, Stephen Lamar Moore, who created the music for our podcast. So thanks again, Dr. Deb.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's always fun.
Yes. All right. I'm going to stop recording, and then